Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming today to my senior seminar presentation entitled An Exploration into Politics. So let's get started. All politics are local. This is a quote this is an idea that was first articulated by Tip O'Neill, who's a former U.S. Speaker of the House. And essentially what it's saying is that in order to be a successful politician, they all need to be able to articulate these macro, large-scale ideas to the common man. And as a common man myself, I wanted to kind of test this idea for my senior seminar project. And to do so, what I did was I reached out to every single politician who represented me, by mail, by email, by phone, multiple times, and my plan was to intern with as many as I could, all across the country, from DC just to our local town hall. This sounded like a fantastic plan, but very few responded. So this was obviously an immediate obstacle. So essentially what I did was I was forced to kind of reconsider the basis of my project. So no longer was I going to be able to complete the required internship, and instead I decided to do an exploration to my civic education. So what I changed my project to include was I was to further my civic education by doing just as much as I could with little to no outside help. So this would include just attending local meetings across the country, and I was going to capitalize on the few responses that I did get, which I did. And so essentially, just throughout the last few months, I've just been trying to become as civically involved as possible, and I think it's been a massive success. Another obstacle that I faced was I had an inability to document photographs throughout the process. This is simply due to some distraction and security concerns. So while all of the photos included in this project are not mine that I took, they're all representative of things that I saw and witnessed throughout the process. So first I'm going to discuss some of my local government involvement, and most of this stems from my attendances at planning commission meetings, where I was invited by Mayor Spalding. So essentially what the planning commission is that it's a group of New Albany citizens who meet to discuss kind of issues regarding zoning, neighborhood realignment, things of that nature. And these decisions directly affect my family, my neighborhood, and my community every single meeting. So you're probably wondering what these cell towers are. And this was a discussion that spanned multiple meetings that I actually got to listen into. And on the right is a picture of or on your left is a picture of a cell tower that the New Albany citizens wanted Verizon to build, which was actually to be built directly across from my house across from my neighborhood, I guess, in the back of Temple Beth Shalom over on by Oakland Nursery. I think that's 62. And on the right is a cell tower that Verizon wanted to build. So obviously there's a disagreement there. And so both sides brought lawyers, both sides had powerful arguments, and in the end, nothing was resolved, and it took over 6 months. So I guess that gives you a little insight to the bureaucratic agenda. But so this is just a prime example of a public discussion that has significant impacts on my life, my family's life, and my community's life. So after I determined this, I wanted to expand my exploration to the next level, and this is when I encountered some state government principles. And to do this, what I did was I observed both houses of the Ohio General Assembly, this being the Ohio House and the Ohio Senate. I did this twice, and they both have public meetings, so just online. I sat in the viewing gallery, and what I gathered is that while they're not quite as local government proceedings, obviously, because they have a larger area to cast over, there are still discussions that directly are related to both my life and my community's lives. For example, in the Ohio Senate, there was a discussion regarding the Ohio Opiate Code, and it was concerned with some sentence times, and thankfully the opiate crisis does not affect my life, but with two parents in the medical field, they see these issues on a daily basis. So I would say that the localized politics are not to the extent of the local government, but the state government still deals with much of the community basis that I saw in the local government. And so late in the summer, I was able to take a trip to Washington, D.C., which was both the most interesting and the most influential part of this entire seminar. My mom and I, we planned through Senator Rob Portman's office. It was one of the few responses that I received early in the process. And I was able to spend a day with Mr. Dave Straka, who's the office manager for Senator Rob Portman. And here what we did was we discussed numerous things. First, we discussed the senator daily schedule, as this was one of my initial goals. But then what struck me even more was we discussed kind of what his job is and the role of his interns, which is what I aspire to do someday. So that was influential. But then later the same day, I took an individual Senate-sponsored tour of the Capitol building. So what this included, was me and an intern from Ohio State. We got to go to the Capitol building. It was just me and her, and we just explored. And it was just incredible just to see that personalized outlook. A pretty interesting thing that I saw was Representative John Lewis of Georgia, who's a civil rights activist, was just wheeled right in front of me. So I didn't want to interrupt his daily basis, but that's someone I look up to very much, and it was just incredible to see him at that close by. But it did not stop there. The next day, I went on a self-guided tour of the U.S. Senate and House of Representatives offices. So essentially what this is each representative in the federal Congress has a office on the National Mall, and their staffs are there, and it's completely public. We walked around, we met the staffs of all the presidential candidates right now, we met all of the Ohio representatives' staffs, and you can just discuss policy, you can add your name to mailing lists. It's a very valuable experience. It was a very valuable experience for me just to kind of see this side of the federal government that I did not know existed. We wrapped up the trip with a viewing time of the U.S. House of Representatives. So I could see much official business being conducted. I got to see Representative Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi, who's the current Speaker of the House. Open business. I got to see official happenings being conducted, which was extremely valuable to my entire experience. So after I did all this, I decided to wrap up my seminar with a look into the basis of democracy, and that being the voting process. So through a program entitled Youth at the Booth, which pairs students with polling locations across the state to kind of fill vacant positions, I was able to be a poll worker. This included 2 rounds of training, one here at the school and one at an office building downtown. And essentially what I did here is I learned how to use the new voting mechanisms, which are put in place due to the Russia allegations of the past election. And what I also did was I became credentialed to be a real poll worker, so I'd be able to do this again, which I'm thinking about, if not for the 16-hour workday, which was 5:30 a.m. until 9:30 p.m. But again, this was just an extremely valuable experience. I could do everything from, set up the machines to teach some elderly people how to use the new technological machines. I posted results, all sorts of stuff. So again, it was just a great experience to see the integral part of our current democracy. So for my formal research, I just tried to research a wide basis of political ideas, just to gather a more unique sense of the political sphere. So I opened with gerrymandering, and then for my next research paper, I researched into the history of the American political party system. And then I interviewed both my on-site advisor and Mr. Straka about possible personal entry into the political system. Before I contemplated the Republican Democratic ideologies as an upcoming voter in the following election, just to have a more educated viewpoint. I want to talk about gerrymandering a little bit, which is the most powerful and intriguing piece that I researched. Essentially, what it entails is once a certain party has a majority in the state Congress, what they'll do is they'll redistrict the systems to benefit their party specifically. So on the right here, you can see certain districts that have been gerrymandered. They do this by kind of grouping certain minorities together in order to more easily benefit one party. And so obviously these aren't neutral districts, and I just think it's an interesting topic, because I got to see the front of house side of politics all the way up until this point. And this showed that there is some corruption still in American politics, even if we don't think so. So as I was preparing for this presentation, I just want to make some conclusions of all of the things I learned throughout the process. First being that all politics are local, with few exceptions. Number one being that I think some politicians, obviously they're very busy, they have busy schedules, they don't have the funding to create massive staff, so it can give off the appearance that maybe they're not necessarily involved in the needs of their constituents, but I still think they care about what we all think, especially at the state level. I think there's few enough people where our individual votes can change elections. So I think they truly have a viewpoint of the localized politics. Another exception I realized was something more macro, and it concerns kind of the tie to the big party. Sometimes politicians can get more sucked into the nationalized, big body of parties, rather than the needs of their constituents. And I think this is something that we all need to pay attention to, because I think it's becoming increasingly popular. It's become more polarized. And we see that every day, on the impeachment hearings. There's not a whole lot of compromise anymore, and I think that's dangerous. What I also contemplated at the end of this process was just the importance of a politically aware populace. These people that we represent, they're not just figureheads, they're representing what we want every single day. And I think kind of just an apathetic attitude towards these people is dangerous, not just to our democracy, but to our lives, our individual lives, because these changes will affect us. That's a fact. And just asking around informally, an informal survey, as I prepared this presentation, I realized just the amount of people who don't realize, who don't even know who our senators are. I would say even fewer know who our state representative is, and that's dangerous to me. And I just, as I move forward, I want to just make sure that everyone's aware of who our senators, our representatives are, because they make real sweeping changes for us. As I move forward, I'm going to attend college in the DC area. I have serious plans to, keep making visits there, with the goal of one day interning in Washington throughout the summer. And more large scale, I would love to make a career in public service someday, either as a politician or some of the other areas that I discussed with all of my advisors. Now, I'd just like to say a few things. First, to the senior team for all their hard work. Ms. Cheney, my primary advisor, to my amazing on-site advisor, Ms. Elizabeth Murch, to Senator Rob Portman and Mayor Spalding for their initial responses and their help kickstarting this whole thing, and to my amazing parents who have supported me endlessly, both in my education and this project and picture building. So thank you all very much. I appreciate it.